Hello there, my name is Ishtari, and this video is going to be pretty different from everything I've posted on this channel before now. I'm talking more in depth about the most recent update, and not just saying, yeah, okay. But not all of it. And that's because the time altar is pretty cool. I don't necessarily care about everything else in this update, but the altar is exciting for me at least. Some clanmates and friends were already talking about it and even messaging me over it before I got on my computer for the day, and it got me excited. I hope we're all aware by now that it changes every time you go into the ruins. I'm not going to go over every single change that happens here. Wings of Absurdity has a great video about that, and I'd recommend checking it out. Link in the description. I do want to talk about the mural in more detail though. It's not too complicated to get. Most will probably be able to pick up on it on their own, but I'm a lore noob, and it got the One Piece side of my brain fired up for a bit, so why not? Let's get over to it. And here we are. The rest of this video is going to be unscripted, but I've been thinking about it all day, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get through this. It's pretty fairly apparent to me and anyone who actually pays attention to the lore of this game that this represents each of the 6 ages of Gielinor. And some of them are very obvious, while others not so much. So, let's go ahead and talk about them. We'll get to the first stage. Well, first. Okay, so I suppose first things first, there is history beyond just the start of the first stage, which starts with Guthix's arrival through the World Gate to Gielinor. And, you know, looking at it at this close detail, I've noticed that there's a lot of land masses here that maybe represent more of Gielinor that we just haven't seen, like Havenheith. That's probably a tangent best left for another time, though. This very clearly represents the start of the first stage. I mean, I already kind of pointed it out earlier. Basically, you got Guthix here, and you got the World Gate here. Only thing that can represent is Guthix coming to Gielinor through the World Gate and starting the first stage. Well, not starting the first stage, but the first stage started with this event. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's move on to the second age. Not very self-explanatory. This might be a very familiar scene to you, if you pay attention to the lore, or if it hasn't been that long ago since you've been in the Fremennik province doing quests for the Moon Clan. Because for me, this seems to depict the resting place of the Stone of Jas when V found it. It's not one-to-one, and I'll put it up on screen so that you can see it. But it's similar enough that it struck me as very odd, because there's been no confirmation on when V even found the Stone of Jas and touched it. But this seems to indicate that maybe it was in the second age and not the first stage. The examined text is interesting. It says that it depicts a beginning of enlightenment, which works for V. But it could also work for Zamorak, because he used the Stone of Jas, also known as the Catalyst by its creator, and the Staff of Armadillo, also known as the Siphon, and he ascended to godhood by overthrowing Zaros, and then going away to help the demons on Infernus for a little while, and then coming back to start a war over the Stone of Jas, the God Wars. Of course, that's the Third Age, but the God Wars technically started like at the tail end of the Second Age, so it's very possible that this could just be depicting that the Second Age ended in a battle over the Stone of Jas, especially since they use this red paint here instead of green. Or maybe it's both. Who knows? Third one isn't that hard to figure out. Let's get to it. Yeah, so do I really need to say much about this? I'll just put it up on screen. Yeah, this looks to be the sword that Guthix slammed down into the wilderness, creating the wilderness crater when he banished all of the gods from Gielinor because of the God Wars and all the death and destruction and pain that they were causing. Now, these two don't line up to the ages exactly. And the reason for that is because both of these events are 5th Age events. Unless they're doing some kind of retcon, which I doubt. Let's go ahead and focus on the first one. We'll be moving around a lot this time. Remember how V found the Stone of Jas? Yeah, well, it was taken away from him by those who walk a higher path. He discovered that underneath, the stone around the Stone of Jas, the rock, had magical qualities to it, rune essence, and he figured out that he could turn this rune essence into runes as well. And he started becoming a hero and getting people rallying around the idea of creating their own runes. The other clans didn't necessarily like this, and this is probably part of why we have the clans for the Fremennik tribes nowadays, or the Fremennik province nowadays. But his followers would end up becoming the Moon Clan. And he and the Moon Clan went all around Gielinor creating rune crafting altars. Just like this one, I'm assuming. And they created them in places where the area exhibited magical qualities in abundance. So, pretty obvious that this area is very heavily associated with time, which I find very interesting because Jas, the Elder Goddess, is also associated with time. And we're in the desert, which seems to be where her resting place is at even. Just an interesting tidbit. Back to it. Rune crafting was a secret that the Moon Clan kept to themselves. I'm not even sure that the other Fremennik clans knew about it, or how to do it. They did though, and they kept it a secret. As with all secrets though, it's eventually going to come out. And towards the end, or at the end of the 4th Age, other humans discovered it. And there's a lot more to it than the Fremenniks simply not liking runes. But the basis of it is that they felt as though rune crafting was a power of the gods, not to be done by humans. As I said, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and the real cause seems to actually be the death of Zoria, who was a guardian of Guthix and a giant toad who protected the rune entrance mine. Entrance of the rune essence mine? Goodness, I can't talk. Gunnar Vilgerson, Vilgerson? I'm not entirely sure. Gunnar, the namesake of Gunnarsgrund. He led an invasion of the rest of the human kingdoms and destroyed all of the temples. Too bad for him though, because where there's a will, there's a way, and pocket dimensions formed around these areas and folded in on themselves. So we got to keep the rune crafting altars, and humans ended up creating runes in abundance. Not enough nature runes, but runes in abundance. The Fifth Age. The Fourth Age probably isn't on here, because the Fourth Age is basically just known as a time of barbarism, and I think that's why they kind of chose to use this to represent it. Yet another case of do I even need to say it? Yeah, I'll just put it up on screen again and talk. This represents the end of the Fifth Age. No doubt about it. It's, when Sliske killed Guthix. There you have it, though. 6 murals, possibly representing 6 ages. This one doesn't exactly add up perfectly, and neither does this one. But the others seem to line up rather well. If you like this video, you can leave me a thumbs up or even possibly subscribe. While you're down there, why not leave me a comment telling me what kind of lore breakdown I should do next. Until next time, happy games.
Bye, have a great time!